Hello, in this tutorial I am going to make a textile, a dimension style, and we're going to look at the dimensions that we really only need to know about for updating supplied site plans. So I'm going to just look at this section here. We're on the Home tab and you've got a little menu here that's for text, dimensions, leaders and tables. So I'll click the text one, manage textiles. I'm going to click new and I'm going to put in there, say Arb text. So that's my textile, and I'm going to use this one for just general text, and I'll just give it a sort of starting height of 0.65. But then I'm going to make another one, and this is going to be Arb dim, and this is going to be used in the dimension style. And with this one you need the height to be at 0, because otherwise it locks the height and you can't adjust the dimension text height. So I'll click close, and if I look now, we've got Arb dim, Arb text. So if I just draw a circle on, give it a radius of 10, just so we know we're at the right sort of scale of view. I'm going to add some multi-line text, so I'll just set that, and let's just put in a tag number. And this is using the Arb dim, which we don't want it to use. We want it to be Arb text. So let's now look at the dimensions. There's a list of a few of them here. We'll always be using the aligned mostly, and I'll show you why. If I put a little circle inside this circle, and we'll say that's the tree center, and we'll call this the RPA circle. And I'm just going to select them all and copy and put a few here. So we've got a few trees there. I'll just renumber these so they look fairly realistic. Turn the grid off because that's a bit annoying. And let's just suppose there's some sort of fence around the site, and I want to put some tree protection fencing around it. So I might do something like this. You don't have to worry about having the fencing line, actually touching the circle, because it's all indicative, because we're using dimensions. It's not essential that it's right on it. So let's say that's my fencing. Give that a colour and a little bit of line weight. Switch the line weight display on. So let's put a dimension on. If I use a linear dimension to the tree center and I want it to go there, it's pretty unusable because the linear locks to the axes, the X and Y axis, and that's really not much help for a tree contractor to go out and stick up the fencing. You won't know what's going on there. So we always use aligned. If you haven't got this snap setting on it, you can press shift right click and to get a lock on. And I would suggest you always lock to an RPA circle. Don't lock to the line unless you have to for some reason, because dimensions can move around as you move the line around. So So there's my dimension. It gives you all these lovely properties, absolutely hundreds of them. Now you could just modify this within the properties and then match property to all the other ones you're going to stick up, but it's much better to have a style made which you can then transfer to other drawings. So I'm going to go into the dimension bit, manage dimensions, and click new. I'm going to call this Arb Dims, and it's asking you what you want to base this on to begin with, and I'm going to just use the standard. I don't want it annotative, and up comes this lovely box with lots of things on. So I am now going to just set it up for the sort of way I would use it, and I'll explain some of these later. So I'm going to just suppress the extension lines. The arrow size, I'll give it a starting setting of 0.75. Not worried about all those. The text, now the textile, we're going to use the Arb Dim that we made earlier. And let's just give it a starting height of 0.6. These are sort of in meters. I don't want any of this. Now the fill color, this will put a background on the little value, which is really handy. And I would suggest you just click background. And text color, I would say by layer, because we'll be putting them on a proper layer, won't we? Of course. Not worried about that. Now the primary units, the precision, how many decimal points do you want to show? If you look down here, it's got 10 and 4 decimal points. I just use 1, so it sort of rounds it to half a metre or so, or around there, 0.6, 0.7. You can just set it to 0 if you prefer. And it's using a full stop as a separator. And the suffix, because we're in meters, I'm going to put an M in there, so there's an M at the end of the 10. And we're not going to look at these. And close. So if your style is now set, it will be automatically used when you draw a new dimension. And that's what went wrong when I did my text, because I had the dimension set, so I should have had it set to that, so that when I start some new text, it automatically uses that style. So if I draw a dimension now, using the aligned, I'll put that there. You can see how it's using the Arb Dim style. It's one decimal place, and it's got my M on there. The text height is 0.6, which is correct. I can change it if I want, but it just starts off at that height. And you've got the arrow sizes at 0.75, which again you can change if you want to make them bigger. If I match properties this onto here, it will transfer those settings. So you're not tied to the dimension style settings that you made. You can modify it, and it won't change the style. That's just the sort of starting. So I can match properties that onto that, and it takes on that one. Now I mentioned that I suppressed the extension lines. The extension lines are 2 lines that come out if you want to pull this away from the the center. If I switch the extension lines back on, it's now got 2 extension lines, and drag this. You can see the extension line there, and this one's hidden behind the fencing. But that can be handy in some situations to have them on, but normally you'd have them off. So when you get sort of in a position where, I don't know, let's say we've got some protective fencing here, sorry, some ground protection or something, and it was hatched. In this case you would bring the fencing on the inside of it, but you still want to protect this bit of root protection area. If I just bring that to the front, and you put your dimension from your tree center, and then you'd want another dimension just to show the width of your ground protection. And you can leave it like that, or you can grab the label and pull it out, and you can do that with these as well because they are the same. Or you may need to sort of show it like that, but because it hasn't got the extension lines on, it doesn't sort of look very good. So if I switch them both on, you can now see their purpose. And occasionally I need the extension lines on, but you know, most of the time I don't, so that's why by default the style will keep them switched off. And we talked about the mask that we made for it, and you can see the masking operation here, the background of the text. It just gives it a nice, if that wasn't there, background, if we turn that off, you can start to lose your text, especially if these are printed out. You can sort of lose your text a bit in the hatching. So I generally have them on. Of course you can set whatever colour you like, but I normally just go for the background colour, the sheet colour. The other dimension which I occasionally use is the radius, and it's just asking for an arc or circle. So if I click that, it's using the same dimension, it's the same sort of settings but in a different sort of way. Very occasionally I need to show that, client may ask for it. And then you've got the diameter, which I don't ever use. Again, you select the object and it puts a different symbol up there. Looks very pretty. There is the angular, which I don't think I've ever used it, to be honest, and I can't see where we would use it. I'll just run through it because it's interesting. If I just draw a couple of lines and you select the 2 lines, and it makes you a nice little angle, and it's using the same dimension. And of course that's a little bit of a problem because we've told it to stick an M on the end of our values, and we don't want it there, so you would have to come down and just remove the M from the suffix. But yeah, it looks quite smart, but you know, I don't think you're ever going to use that. Right, let's have a look at the leader, which is sort of an annotation box with an arrow. Now we haven't set up a style for that, so let's quickly make one. And this is the leader bit, so manage multi-leaders, new, and I'll call this Arb Leader. The arrowhead size, I'll put that as 1, so it's a bit chunky. And colour by layer. The structure, the landing distance, that's a little bit that sticks out. I'll show you that in a sec. I'll make that 1. And I'm not interested in any of that. And the content, we want it to use mtext. And the textile, we can use the Arb dim one. And the text height I'll set to 1. But you can change it later. And that's great. Click OK. So check he's set, he is. Oops. So let's put a leader on. And it wants the first position. And then you sort of drag it out where you want your text box to be. And let's just put in some, no, it should be a bit more professional. Tree protective fencing. And you've got a nice little label. You can play around with it. This is the sort of landing section, which you can adjust. And the properties, Arb Leader, we're using the Arb Dim Textile. We can put a mask on this. And it sets it to the white background, or the black, depends on what the screen colour is. I believe we can stick a box around it, there we go. If you specify the width, if you specify a value in there, say 3, then you've sort of created a boundary box. If you justify it middle center. And that's why I generally don't use the text frame, because it's too tight. You can tell it where you want this line to appear if you select left attachment, middle of text. It goes in the middle. But I don't actually use that method. I'll just copy this. And I'm going to make the height 1. And I'll just steal this text. So I just use Control-C for the text. What I tend to do is do my leader, but I don't put any text in it. So this is mtext separate to this, which is a textless leader. The problem with this is the drawing order. Because I drew this text first, or made it, and this second, if I move him there, you've got the leader on top of the text. I can show that better with a little box. If I stick a box on here, because what you want is for that line to be hidden. So if I were to give this a mask, and because it's still, this is still being drawn by AutoCAD after this, you need to just bring this to the front, bring to the front. And this is my sort of lazy way of doing them. And I just prefer having more flexibility with the mtext being a separate entity, and the adjustable margin. If I stick a text frame around that, it just looks a bit constrictive to me. If I just stick some more protective fencing here, let's just pretend a tree was sitting here. somewhere. And this was sort of here. I can just shove that under there. It's hidden. I can copy this, stick it next to it, bring that down here. And because I drew the leader last, it's above the text box, so I either have to send the leader to the back, if I undo that, or bring the text box to the front. You know, once you've done one, you don't do them again, you just copy them. So if I want this up here, it's just a lot more flexible. I can put the leader where I like on the box. I can have 2 leaders, and with the fixed method I can't do that. So I just use the leader as it is without text, and a separate mtext block. And if I grab that now, you can make another version. And we call that ground protection. And once you've done, you know, once you set all this up on a drawing, there's no need to redo it all for the next drawing. Just copy. Right click, clipboard, copy. And on your next drawing, clipboard, paste. And you'll have all your, this is a completely new drawing, and you'll have all your styles in place. They won't be set as default, so you might have to do that, but they're all there. The Arb dims and the Arb leader. So you just copy, paste, and you've got everything set up for the next one. And that goes for layers and other things as well. As long as you copy, you know, something with the layers you've set and paste it, you've got everything you need. What you do eventually is actually sort of build up a sort of library of bits and pieces and keep them on a separate drawing, paste stuff in, and have it ready for, you know, modifying a drawing. If I go to the meters drawing, and for instance just grab some of this, copy that, then paste it away from your drawing, and then you can just sort of use that. If I had some fencing there, and you would use match properties, so you just match property your protective fencing onto the new drawing, grab, don't want that one, do I, because that's the leader box, and just drag things over. And it just saves time. You know, I've actually got a drawing sort of specifically called a sort of library, and it's full of all sorts of bits of annotation and fencing styles, and I just open it up just like, say, this, and copy bits you want onto your drawing. So that's it for this one. Thank you very much. I think the next one we're going to be doing hatching. Okay, cheers, bye.